What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Monday, so that means it's time for another new comic book day, top picks. And today I'm going to be picking out 3 books that are coming out this Wednesday, October the 7th, that have a great sense of adventure and specifically direct themselves into uncharted territories. I'm excited to talk about this, but before I ramble too much longer, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe buttons and turn on that notification bell. There's no greater book with the sense of adventure being published right now than Adventure Man. This is written by Matt Fraction. It's got art by Terry Dodson, letters by Clayton Cowles, and the design is being handled by Leonardo Alia. In the last issue, we saw Claire go to the ER because her family was very concerned about the adventure she had been on in the second one. So while she's in the ER, the police officer that we've seen that she has some sort of connection to comes into the emergency room with his new partner on a gurney. He tells the story of, something that went wrong in the subway. They were attacked by these insects, which we have seen a little bit of in the background on the Baron and the Baroness. So this leaves us to understand that this is all connected back to Claire and her role as the new Adventure Man. So whenever he comes into the ER, Claire, she has heightened senses, so she senses them coming from blocks away. When they bust in the door, she jumps to action even though, she's in an emergency room full of doctors and they're trying to get her to stay out of the way. But she's clearly, she says that she knows what to do. At that point, we kind of cut to a flashback of her as Adventure Man with the entire Adventure Man team from the, that we saw at the beginning of the first book. They're on an old style galley ship and they're fighting these undead creatures, and she is doing a blood transfusion as Adventure Man on one of her fallen allies, and she's able to stabilize him. As that happens, we cut back to the emergency room and we see her on top of Philly's partner on this gurney, and she has all these tubes and stuff. She's doing a blood transfusion with him, and suddenly everything stabilizes and he is safe. So at that point, the doctors obviously have a ton of questions for her. She goes through a lot of testing, and it leaves these medical professionals scratching their heads. They can't figure out why she's grown so much so fast, why she got her hearing back, why the rest of her senses are, very heightened. And so there's a lot of questions they don't have answers to. She ends up going home that evening, and as they're watching an Adventure Man movie, you see her, she has almost this abundance of energy. Like, she doesn't even seem tired at all. And from there, we cut into an epilogue of the ghost lady that gave her the book in the first and second issues, and met her at the tower in the second issue, I believe. Or, I'm sorry, in the second issue. She met the ghost lady who we now see in the epilogue has been kidnapped by the Baron, and he's able to summon this giant creature, but his daughter, the Baroness, she betrays him and takes all the power for herself. And now this beast from the Ultra Void is under her control, and she wants the heart of the Adventure Man. And that kind of defines the fact that Claire is the embodiment of Adventure Man in the modern era, and that this is a title and almost like a mantle that's being passed along. So that's really exciting. I'm excited to see where number 4 takes us, because the end of 3 basically confirmed that she's the new Adventure Man. So I'm excited now to see the adventures that we can go on with her and the big fight she's going to have with the Baroness, now that we have established the role and the backstory of these characters. So Adventure Man number 4 will be out this week, and I'm really excited to see where that goes from here. The Orville, launch day number 2. This is written by David A. Goodman. Art is by David Cabeza. Colors are done by Michael Attia, and Richard Starking and Jimmy Betancourt are handling the lettering on this. The Orville is a show that I do enjoy. I think the first half of the first season is very rough, The second half of the first season is pretty good, and season 2 is excellent. They really ironed out a lot of the kinks in between seasons there, and I'm really excited for what happens with season 3. I hope it continues beyond that, but you never know. And I think they have considered already canceling it after season 3, so we'll see what happens. In the meantime, there have been some Orville comics that have been coming out, and I own all of them because I enjoy the show, I enjoy the lore, and the comics do a really great job of filling in some gaps that happen in between seasons. For instance, at the beginning of season 2, there's a character there that just basically is there. However, they give you an explanation in the comics as to where he comes from and what his role is, and I think that's really awesome. So they're doing another comic series that takes place in between seasons 2 and 3 to help connect those two, and that's where Launch Day comes in. So this first issue, what we saw was Ed and Gordon in the past, 20 years ago. They're working on the boar as has been established with their history, and this green alien is brought in named Yisel. They have to deliver him back to his home planet of Alibar, who is leaving the Union, but they're not given an answer as to why. And so that's kind of the mystery in this story, is why did they leave in the first place, and what prompted them to suddenly leave and not tell anybody why. When we cut to the future, or I guess when we cut to the present time from there, we see the Orville is intercepting some Krill ships. I think there's 8 Krill vessels that are crossing Union space to get to Alibar. And so the Orville intercepts them, and they ask them, like, you're going through Union space, this could start a war, what's going on? And the Krill explain to them, yeah, like, we're going here because there's this weapon being built, and we're going to go destroy it because it's, closer than we would like to the home planet of the Krill. So Ed and team, they use their diplomatic skills and some previous experience they have with the Krill. They're able to use that to their advantage, and they get 2 days time to figure out what's going on, what Alibar is really up to. Are they actually making a weapon? And if they are expected to team up with the Krill to take it out, because the Union is fearful of this weapon as well, because nobody's had any contact in 20 years with Alibar, and they don't know what's really going on there. But again, this weapon is being built, and that's concerning to everybody in the Union as well as the Krill, because it is close to their home world. At that point, we get Ed and Kelly. They are being disguised just like the Alibaran aliens, and they go down to the planet. They're dropped off by Malloy and Gordon, and they go into the city. There's some weird xenophobic vibes about it. They find lunch. However, whenever they eat lunch, they're expected to pay for it. And the Union works much like the Federation of Star Trek. Everything is synthesized, therefore there's no cost to anything. Therefore, money does not really exist to them, and therefore they don't have any way to pay for this lunch they just ate. What's surprising about that, to them at least, is because Alibar was part of the Union for like a century, and they always used the synthesizers. They worked the same way as the rest of the Union. So whenever they left the Union, now they're kind of confused as to what would make the society take a whole step back to, I guess, what we would call a modern economy. And from there, they're running from the police. They're trying to figure out what's going on. We see Gordon and Malloy in space. They're approaching this giant Death Star looking object, and they do report that, as much as they hate to say it, this does look like a weapon. At the same time, we cut back to Mercer and Grayson on the ship, they're on Alibar in the city, and they see this message from the guy that was basically elected into position whenever Alibar left the Union. They see him, and he's delivering this message about how tomorrow's launch day is going to change everything for Alibar. It's going to get rid of the people that have been living in the shadows and have been secretly upsetting their society. And so that's a very interesting turn at that point. because that kind of reveals what this story is a lot about. I feel like it's definitely harping on the this nationalist, populist movement we've seen over the last probably like 4 to 5 years in politics, where several different countries have elected leaders that are definitely outside the realm of standard, and they tend to prey on people's love of their country and patriotism. You know, there's an obvious egregious example of it right here in the United States. You have a couple of others. The UK, Philippines, Mexico have all followed suit. And so I think this is more than just a commentary on modern culture within the States, but it definitely seems like a commentary on like the global state of things. And I think it's really interesting. I'm really excited to see what happens because, you know, as humans, we live on this one planet, and so we're kind of divided by lines we create. Therefore, there is this infiltration of any and all countries of, you know, with the legal and illegal immigration and everything. And so this is really interesting to me because this is a whole planet where they know the only people on this planet are, you know, the natives, the Alabarans. And so to me, this is a very interesting commentary because this leader has clearly preyed upon people's concerns for security and immigration, even though it shouldn't be a problem. And for 20 years, they haven't had any contact with the union or anything. Yet here they are. Here he is preaching about how there's illegal immigrants within their borders, and that's disrupting their society. So I'm excited to find out more about what's going on with this guy. Like I said from the top, I like the Orville, and I think if you like the Orville, you would really enjoy these comics because David A. Goodman is a writer and producer on the show, and David Cabeza works closely with him on all of these. He gets all of the, you know, the official Fox, or I guess at this point Hulu, production stills and stuff, so all the art matches. He does a great job of drawing these characters. David Goodman does an excellent job of writing all the voices and the dialogue and everything. And of course the colors and the lettering work as well. These really are truly quality comics. I'm usually not big on comics trying to tie in to other media and stuff, but this is an exception because they are really truly well done. If you like the Orville, go pick up Launch Day number 1 and number 2. I'm sure if you can find a shop that carries them, they will be there because so many people are overlooking this great series. It's hard to believe that it's been a month since people went absolutely bonkers for We Only Find Them When They're Dead. This week, we're going to see the release of the second book, and I'm excited to stick on board. However, I am very interested in how many people are going to stick around because this definitely seems like a long haul. So this is written by Al Ewing. The art is done by Simone Di Meo, and colors are done by Marissa Metati. And World Design is handling the lettering. And this book comes from Boom Studios, which seems to be a huge selling point because of all the great content they've been putting out lately. This book, number 2, is going to pick up where the first one left off. So I wanted to revisit that one and see how it felt a month later after we all read the book. And some people really liked it. Some people felt like it didn't quite deliver. I kind of fall in the middle. I think it was good, but I think this is designed to be a long haul, and we're going to have to wait for all that building and connecting. However, I do think there was a small miss in this first book that really could have hooked a lot of readers in a little bit better. We start the book by meeting the characters of the story, but more importantly of the ship, the Vihan. And our captain here is Georges Malik. And he has a history with the ship, with Vihan 1, and in the story itself, his past is setting up the world that we're in. His coroner is Ella Hauer. He has a quartermaster named Alice Worth, and Jason Hauer is the engineer. I'm assuming that is Ella, the coroner's brother, but we haven't got... I don't believe there was any real confirmation on their relationship beyond that. Maybe they're married, maybe they're brother and sister. I felt like they were kind of brother and sister, but I'm sure we'll find out more moving forward. The story began and follows up on this theme of 8 bells, all's well. And basically, when you hear 8 bells, it seems like they come in rings of 2. So, ding, 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 ding. 8 bells, all's well. They set time by these bells. They know that when they hear these 8 bells, that means that a dead god is about to appear. And that was an excellent reveal in this first book. As we heard the 8 bells for the first time, we get our first peek at a massive god that's on this unfathomable scale. And at this point, all the ships start lining up. We find out that they're like old mining vessels. Basically, they found a new way to use their old equipment. So they are mining the tissue of these dead gods to use as, I guess, fuel and other substances for production within their society. In this first book, our team takes the left cheek and mouth. So they're cutting basically this part of the god away. And they're going to take this, package it up in their ship, and they're going to take it back to their government, I guess, and sell it off to them to make the money they need to keep operating. While they're doing this, though, they do see 2 ships, the Pot of Gold and the Eagle Retrieval ship, are arguing over some space. They're getting into this squabble, fighting back and forth. And we kind of get this exposition about how basically it used to be the Wild West. You would go out there and you would take your stuff and you would go. But over the last several years, it's all become so industrial and corporate that now there's these big corporations like Eagle Retrievals that will throw lawyers and lawsuits at these smaller companies that are just trying to get into the business. At the same time, because of all of this distraction, this ship named the Pavanis Freedom tries to escape, basically. And this is when we find out that everybody's kind of under surveillance and they're being guarded and protected and kind of, there's almost like this prison labor feel to it. And so whenever this ship tries to escape, then we see this solo ship with somebody named Paula Richter get involved. She chases them down. She warns them they need to, fall back and form on her wing. And she radios in one more time before shooting them down. And there's no more of them. So we kind of get like this prison warden kind of chain gang kind of vibe out of all of this. It reminds me kind of like a prison chain gang meets like tow truck driver culture, if you could cross those two things together. It's really cool. It's really interesting. I really enjoyed this part. And then from there, we kind of get more introduction to the crew. We get great visuals of how it is that they actually like mine and harvest these gods. And they set it almost to like a ballet tone. It's really cool stuff. I love the visuals in this book. Simone did a great job with all of that. At the end of the book, we see the Vihan is another ship that is going to attempt to escape the clutches of this very controlling government. We find out whenever they're in hyperspace, whenever they're doing a hyper jump, they're able to speak freely because the intercoms cannot hear what they're saying. There are no longer any ears. And at this point, the captain reveals the true plan here. They are going to go, and in 3 days, they will see for the first time a living god. And that's a great hook. I just don't feel like it was presented very well because we don't know what that means. As the audience, they didn't explain to us, what the difference would be between a living and a dead god. Even if they don't know because they've never met one, there should have been some sort of presentation of like what the theory on a living god would be, or where these dead gods are coming from and why they're dead when they find them. I feel like there just should have been a little bit more, even if it's not a true explanation, at least what society's theory is, So that's the one miss I think they had, is they should have explained why it's significant that they're going to see a living god. And I think that would have held the audience over a lot better and would have kept people really excited to find out more about this. However, I do think this was a great book. I think this is setting up something big. It seems to be formatted in the style of like Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think this was called Book 1, Chapter 1. So I'm assuming now we're going to be on Book 1, Chapter 2. And I don't know how big the book itself will be. I would assume probably like 5 issues. So the first trade will be Book 1. The second trade will be Book 2. You know, and so that'll be a really interesting way for all of this to unfold, especially in monthly floppy comics. This seems like a format we haven't seen a lot of. So I'm excited to find out more about this world. I really like what I saw in this book. I really like what I read in this book. I just wish they had hooked the audience a little bit better. But this is Al Ewing, who has been crushing it with his Immortal Hulk run. And he's also doing Guardians of the Galaxy that people are really excited about. He was part of the Empire event. So Al Ewing is making big moves. And I think if nothing else, even if this first issue didn't quite grab you, I would say stick around and find out what Al Ewing has up his sleeve. Because he's on fire right now. And just like a Tynion book, I would say don't miss this. Because it's probably going to turn into something quite great if you stick around. So that's it, guys. I picked 3 books. There's actually... So that's it, guys. I picked 3 books this week that all fit this theme of adventure. One thing that I really like is space. I like cosmic stories. I like sci-fi. I like, you know, just this idea that there's, you know, like the sense of adventure, and there's this final frontier, and there's this place. We know so much about Earth, but there's this place of ultimate vastness that we know very little about, and that really, really excites me. And so anytime that there's a great space story that can do something interesting and kind of explore space and, you know, what the future looks like and what technology can change, what it would mean on a galactic scale versus just a global scale. All of these things really interest me, and so I picked 3 books that had a great sense of adventure and are looking to explore new horizons, and that's what I went with this week. However, that is not the only books that I will be reading. Some honorable mentions that you know, were on the list, but I ended up not recapping and talking about extensively are The Rise of Ultraman number 2, Thor number 8, Deceased Dead Planet number 4, Lonely Receiver number 2, and of course, I'm extremely excited about Firepower number 4. I think that book is going to be a lot of fun. We're finally going to start to get into what that book is really about and what that story really is. And what it all means to Owen Johnson and how he's going to get sucked back into that world from the graphic novel. So there's a lot of great books coming out this week. If you've been paying attention to me for any amount of time, you've probably seen the last, pretty much since March, New Comic Book Day has been up and down. I'll have a week where it's like 10 books I'm excited for. A couple weeks ago, I think there was 1 book coming out that I was excited for. So it's really nice to see another heavy week, because I think the last 2 or 3 weeks I've only picked up like 1 or 2 books. But clearly I have more than enough to grab this week. So what are you excited for this week? What are you expecting to grab this week? And what do you think about these 3 books? I would love to hear some comments about the Orville, because I really like that series, but I love to hear the criticism of what people don't like about it, because I think that's really interesting too. And you know, Adventure Man's been great. And what are people thinking about We Only Find Them When They're Dead? Because the first book, there was a lot of hype. Everybody was excited for it, but I don't think it quite had the hook that it needed to hold them all over. And so I'd be interested to see who's still going to stick around and finish this series, and who's excited for it the same way that I am. So that's all I have for this week. Until next time, keep flipping.